Awesome. It's really great when all the technology cooperates. There's a lot of wires in here, and apparently there's a lot of wires happening over at in my guest's location as well. So, um, how is everybody? This will be this actually might air in February. It's just this year is off like out of a cannon, out of a cannon. Hopefully everybody having a good time out there in 2026. Lots of crazy stuff happening out there. So hopefully everybody's keeping safe and everybody's healthy and happy. I will just see, Josh. I really need to like work on my intro a little bit better. It's you know, I butcher it. I got Josh DeVries from Intivio on today. I'm actually really excited to talk to you. I know like a lot about your product and what you guys are doing over there, and I am a big supporter and all of that. How was 2025 for you? Let's start in 2025, and then we'll reverse time and talk about the inception of Intivio, and just kind of let's let it flow. So, how was
Yeah,
2025? What were some key things that kind of rang some red flags or some good things? Let's touch on that and see where that takes us.
yeah. I think for everyone, 2025 was a bit of a whirlwind. I think a lot of our clients were reevaluating what are they paying, what are they getting in return for that investment, and how are the overall operations aligned to achieving the production targets of the clinic. And that was a really good time for us because we spent a tremendous amount of time in Q1 really focusing on what would have to be true for Intivio to be the no-brainer solution that we believe it to be. And what would our clients have to say and what would they have to experience? And what we found was that fundamentally the patient engagement space has become really commoditized, that it really has boiled down to just sending emails, sending text messages, having two-way chat, having all of these side features. But it really, in all grand scope of things, was not being held anywhere near to the value of the practice management software. And, we saw that, we are, acknowledged it with our customers. And one of the things that it really led us to do is to think beyond patient engagement, because we've been around for 15 years. 2025 is our 15-year anniversary. Um, and we've seen this space evolve before. When we started out, it was really just about patient communication. And really, for some institutions, it was just patient messaging, sending out a blast to everyone on their phones and leaving voicemails. And we saw it emerge to being more around communication, getting responses, even simple responses like confirmations through to full conversations. And really, that's where the patient engagement space really evolved to, where you could have two-way conversations. And there was a huge value on making sure these patients stay engaged, stay loyal, and continuing their commitment to your practice. And what we thought, is what would have to be true for us to become viewed like the practice management software, viewed as a mandatory service for every single practice, and really a default application for operations teams. And it really caused us to think beyond patient engagement towards patient experience. And patient experience is really the combination of many things, but most importantly, it's about patient acquisition. How are you bringing patients into your practice? It's about patient engagement. How are you making sure your patients stay loyal and are, showing that loyalty through rebooking rates? And then finally, making sure that everything that's scheduled on the appointment gets completed successfully every day. And all of those things come together to make up the patient experience, which really is, why does a patient choose you versus, the clinic down the road? And Intivio has really drawn exciting roadmaps and plans towards becoming the patient experience solution and really helping you turn patient experience into practice profitability. So that's been really our focus for 2025 and into 2026. We've got some really exciting releases that are going to, I think, change the game and how people view patient engagement and how that sits to make up the patient experience. But it was a super transitional year, and we had some awesome conversations. We met with all of our largest customers throughout the year, and really heard from them. What's the feedback? Where are they having the most pain, and where can we drive value and solve some of the problems around the patient experience?
That's it. Well, it was nice chatting with you. You covered. I'm just kidding. Um, what were those? What were the clients saying? Like, what were the kind of the reoccurring themes in terms of pain points? What
So I
were they
think
saying?
they confirmed what we knew to be true, is that there are no two clients the same, and that you really do need a configurable solution to meet their needs. There's not an out of the box product that's really just going to work perfectly. You're going to have trade offs. So Intivio has always really focused on being the application that learns your processes and workflows rather than you learning what we do. So we heard from our customers that that's still really important. That's actually on the forefront of what they care about. But most importantly, it's really, how do I do the same, if not more, with less resources? And what are some of the bottlenecks happening at my organizations that's preventing us from being more efficient? So deeper integrations and deeper
Hmm.
partnerships, not only with our customers with us, but us with other vendors. There's been a doubling down on, we want patient forms to be integrated directly into the practice management softwares. Another thing we heard is they want phone lines brought into the system. So we had some exciting VoIP partnerships that we've announced this year. But most importantly, is they want a record of truth of what's happening from the patient's point of view. The current record of truth of practice management is really focused on what's happening from the scheduler. Whereas we want to really open up and show you, with this patient, where are they along the patient journey? How has their experience been from, initial introduction to the practice, to booking that first appointment, through to completing the new patient exam, all the way through to having, their restorative and their major treatments done by you. But what does that patient journey look like? And what are the interactions you're having with them to drive a better overall experience? So that's really what we're hearing. We're hearing it's, people are having to work a little bit harder to get the same results. And they really need tools like us to help make things more clear and more efficient.
I love the discovery of bottlenecks. I think, if you can have something in place to be able to diagnose that on a regular basis, that's powerful, right? Like, it's, you want life. Life always is the path of least resistance, right? So if you have
Mhm.
anything in place that you can really analyze and use that information for coaching as well. It's not like a big brother thing. It's really, it's to observe. We all have these like preconceived ideas of what's happening, but then to have technology in place to really, hey, this is what's actually going on. That's exciting. Like, I think it's really exciting time to be, I guess, a nerd, I suppose. But can you imagine like the practices that don't have these tools in place? Obviously, you're coming from the bias of where you are, but what are these practices missing out on?
I think the reality is many of these practices are using a tool like ours, but there's a gap in the market today. It's becoming more and more obvious that practices hear from the consultants. They're going to the trade shows. They know the KPIs they need to be tracking. They know, I need this sort of rebooking rate with my active patients. Maybe it's
Mhm.
75% of all active patients need to be rebooked. I know I need to bring in 5 to 10 new patients every week to cover the patients that are leaving or moving away. I know I need to have a appointment completion rate by 90%. Like, there's a lot of knowledge today, and there's a lot of tools and workflows and processes that they're following. But there's an executional gap where we know what we need to produce, we know the measurements that help drive us there, we know the work we need to do, but actually on the ground floor, what's happening every day? And there's a complete disconnect between what are we producing for tomorrow and what are we doing today to make sure it happens. And it's not because of a lack of trying. Dentistry, and especially operations teams, the reception, the office manager, they are every single day dealing with dozens, if not 100 patients who are on a different segment of their patient journey. And that step that they're in has a different requirement. And they're constantly managing that for like, there's no way to keep tabs on everything, but
Mm.
offices require it. And that's really what we're focusing and supporting, is how can we make operational teams more efficient, more aligned, and working and marching together towards the company's goals, and really making these practices more profitable by optimizing the production time.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then really, it's a gap in the market, and everyone today is addressing it with, we have all these tools. If you use these tools well, you're going to see that result. And quite frankly, it's not enough. They need
Right.
to have tracks laid out that they can just move and push along for each of their patients, and to be notified when something stalled or when something completed that they weren't aware of. And then, it really boils down to the first trend that we're seeing. There's a huge desire for, not for artificial intelligence. I think people are fatigued from that word, but it's
Mm.
augmented intelligence. How can I have a meaningful connection conversation with my patients, and in the purviews see everything that's relevant to the conversation, to the patient, whether it be forms that aren't completed, or an outstanding balance, or maybe a voicemail they just left. How do we make that front and center so you can connect with your patients in a more meaningful and more effective manner?
Josh, let's kind of reverse a little bit. Let's talk about, you got a practice just set up. What what steps along? What are the touch points along the way that that your software, your solution is helping address?
So are we talking about like a de novo, straight, brand new practice opening the door? Or are we saying like an
Yes.
acquisition?
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about, somebody's interested out there. They like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What can they expect the patient journey to be, and where do you implement, and how is the information then relayed to the team so that you have this cohesive workflow out of this?
Yeah, so I think it starts with making sure that you have a line on every single patient, and there's a follow-up action already scheduled somewhere down the line for you to connect with this patient. It might be in a week from now, a month from now, or 3 months from now, where you need to get them to do that rebooking for their hygiene. But if you're talking about a brand new practice, your most important goal, and it's that first pillar we talked about, is around patient acquisition. And now, depending on what type of practice you are, whether you're a specialist or whether you're a GP, whether you're active opening up a brand new practice, or whether you're taking over an existing practice, you need to generate new patients coming in your door. So what we're seeing more and more is a focus on brand, values, and culture of your practice. Visually, and what are you doing that makes you special? Why would a patient choose to leave their current practice to go to you? Unless you want to just capture all your patients moving into the area. I mean, but like if you're starting a new practice, that's not going to be enough. You need to convince people to switch. So, what is it that makes you special? Someone's going to switch. What is it that makes you different? Maybe you offer different procedures, different offerings. Maybe you're open on weekends or evenings. But then also, what makes you better? Maybe you have better training. Maybe you take better courses or specialties, and you can provide better care for your patients. But you fundamentally need to understand those three things, and then we can help you work the workflows around that. As I mentioned earlier, there are no two practices the same. And because we learn your processes, your workflows, and your values and culture and communication, we tailor everything to what you value and how you want to engage, and the type of experience you want to build for your patients. But it starts off with having multiple doors of entry. Think about a patient who refers you on Facebook. You want to have easy links that when someone mentions you on Facebook, they can find your Facebook page, and then from that Facebook page, they can request that first appointment. That's one of the ways that we support them. You want to have that same sort of experience on the website, that they can request appointments, or get a booking right in order on the website. We also do something called non-patient chat, where you can publish your chat number for your patients, and non-patients can text you and ask you when the next available opening is. You might want to expand your referral network. Go to different doctors or specialists, and ask them, hey, if a patient comes in direct, where do you send them for their follow-on care? Where do you recommend? And maybe you can get some referrals in your door. Community events is another area, and we have newsletters and other communication features to help you engage with more people effectively. But really, you need to really understand, top of the funnel is, what are my new patients coming in? How am I building that practice? How do I get my first 1,000 active patients, and build towards that elusive 2,500, 3,000 active patient base that's going to make you $2 million plus a year in revenue. So that's
Yeah.
really what we focus in on, is really just opening up that top of funnel, putting lines on every single patient or non-patient so you know the next step, and then proactively reminding you, this is what you need to do with this patient in order for them to show up prepared and have that procedure be done successfully.
And you touched on this. How important is it to first for these practices to identify what their identity is and what they
Mhm.
value. Like, how important is that before you bolt on any solution? Like, let's jump on that, because
I,
that's where, like, where I usually revolve around, is trying to help coach a practice in developing that kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to get your take on it.
so I think, strategy is challenging. But the biggest thing you have to remind yourself is, what is strategy not? Strategy isn't just obvious things like we should treat our customers really good. Of course, you need to treat your patients really well. That's table stakes. But maybe it is going to be around evidence-based dentistry, where you're going to take the time across your entire organization to constantly be educating your patients on what are they seeing in their x-rays, how are they caring for their gums or their teeth, and what is the evidence support that they're doing it well or they're not doing it well. That could be something they're really passionate about. That could be something that in itself isn't good or bad. It's morally neutral. You could have an office that really believes in educating patients. That's really good. And you could have an office that believes in just providing really good care, and be really good. So I think it's understanding what is it not. It's not no brainers. But then what is it? And someone once told me it's easier to find people to rally around the values and the culture that you truly care about and you truly have than it is to fake it and convince people there's something they're not. And so I think it's like you got to take a look in the mirror. What are the things I personally value? What are the things I'm passionate about? And then how can I leverage that to the betterment of my company, for my staff, for my patients, and how can I make them become bearers of that culture and those values? So I think it's honestly fundamental in any business, but even more so for businesses that have such a personal interaction with patients, but even more so that's in an industry that has such a bad reputation for being cold or sterile, and to provide something that's a little bit more warm, a little bit more friendly is a nice differentiator.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of these practices move towards more being like this real spa feeling, and that's a design standpoint, even like
Mhm.
the lighting and everything.
And that's great, but
Yeah,
like if you're someone like me who maybe you raise your voice quite often and sometimes you're passionate and you yell,
you're not
maybe the
that kind
spa
of guy.
clinic isn't, that's not going to help you. That's not going to be
Yeah,
aligned to what you personally care about. So it's really important that they're authentic. I think
yeah,
people
yeah.
crave authenticity in a
I
world
agree.
of AI, in a world
Yeah,
of social media
yeah.
posts that are all touched up. People want to see the raw, they want to see the real, and they're attracted to people that, warts and all, they're
Hmm.
authentic.
Yeah, and that's like when I'm shooting a video for a client, that's what it's all about. It's not, let's move away from scripting. Let's just get the real guts of the heart out. And I think that is the best. That communicates, I think, the best. And then you don't have to live on this facade, like this illusion. Like, people will feel it when they come to the practice, and it's really, at the end of the day, it's all about how they feel, and that's when that's going to bring somebody back as well.
Couldn't agree more.
Yep, yep, yep. So acquisition, let's talk about how, like, what is the best steps in bringing, we'll talk about existing folks into the practice, but also new folks into the practice, and how do you make that frictionless?
So I think the biggest one, and you mentioned before, is like, what's the path of least resistance?
Yeah.
And how do we make sure that that path is the happy path that we want our patients to be on? And one of the things that we focus on at Tivio, and it's a little bit of our secret sauce, but I can share it for people, is micro agreements.
Ooh.
No one wants to agree to spending, an hour for a consultation of a half day surgery to not only then spend $7,000. No one wants to agree to that right off the hop. So what you need to do is you need to break that down to, okay, what's the first step I need to get them to agree to? And then how do I make sure they do that and then get them primed for the next step? So what I always say is start with micro agreements. Open up as many doors for patients to enter. And then as soon as they enter, say, if I got you this appointment this time, would you like it? And they go, yes, great. I'm going to send you over a reminder email with a confirmation link and some forms and information I want you to fill out. Can you promise me that you're going to read that and then confirm it when you receive it? Yep, perfect. Okay, hang up your call. Now they get that email and then they click on it. And that's another micro agreement. 3 days later, send out the forms for them to complete, prep them but like really boil down, what does it take for to be successful? what is the communication method for this to really land with the patient? They're going to complete this requirement. A great example I make is like fasting instructions shouldn't be in the very first email. They should come at 10 or 7 p.m. the night before the surgery. Um, Forms really should come 2 weeks before. Give them as much time to fill out their forms or send over their x-rays. But it's really understanding all the different steps and then thinking what is easiest and best and the happy path for my patients to take to complete this, not for me to do it, because that's often just one email, read it and do it all. But really speak in their turn, speaking to things that they're going to value, and that's going to give you the highest likelihood for them to actually comply and make sure that appointment's successful.
Josh, which and I hear this all the time because I'm in the industry. How much is too much? Like a lot of these softwares are just, it's text message after text message after text message.
So
Is there a happy balance in between getting the message across, getting it received, and then making sure that that patient is actually going to be a patient of record and coming into the practice? Is there a sweet spot there?
So we live by 3 rules with all of our communication and engagements on our platform. And I fundamentally believe if you're abiding by these 3, there's no such thing as too much. Even though patients tell you you're sending me too many messages. And I have this conversation all the time with customers.
Yeah.
And when you audit, why patients say that, it's like, man, I sent them like 2, 3, maybe 4 messages. That's not too much. What they're actually meaning is you're sending me too much of the same messages that they don't seem relevant, they don't seem important, they don't seem actionable, and I just don't want to do them. So I kind of classify you as spam in my brain, and every time I look at your message, I think, oh, this is annoying. Another generic message I'm getting about nothing. Delete, don't respond.
Yeah.
What patients want is they want timely messages. You're sending this at this time for a reason. They want actionable. You want me to do something. You need me to do something in order for my treatment to be successful. And then you want it to be relevant. It has to actually be about the appointment that they're proceeding. It's not just some random click here to confirm or reply with see if you're going to show up. These are important instructions for this type of procedure. And if you don't do this correctly, you're going to show up unprepared and we're not going to be able to complete your appointment.
Right.
So it's really, I feel about if you're following those 3 rules, patients don't see this as an automated reminder. They're seeing this as important information about a procedure they know they need to do. But to answer in like what do we see from the data? Between 8 and 12 points of communication are required for a new patient exam to be showed up successfully, pre-booked, confirmed, forms completed, on time.
8 to
and
12.
that's way more than people think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's very important information. And what time frame 8 to 12?
If usually for a new patient, you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks out. So you
Okay.
think your first point is they're calling you for that appointment, or they're messaging you for that appointment. Your second one is you're actually giving them this appointment. Third one might be they're saving in their calendar. The fourth one might be complete out these forms. Their fifth one might be we need your insurance information. Your sixth one might be your previous doctor, give us their contact information so we can get your x-rays. Your sixth, when you kind of go through them one by one, people kind of like, oh, you're right. You kind of need a minimum of 6.
Right.
And if you need second kicks at the can for some of these things, yeah, you're going to get to 8 or 12. But it's because we have the habit of what's easiest for me. Easiest for me is to send you one email with everything you need to do in that one email. And if it's too generic, well, you'll call me. And patients are just becoming less and less tolerant to that because we have so much more noise and distraction
So much
that
noise,
we just
yeah.
get really good at compartmentalizing. It's like, oh, this looks like junk. It goes in the junk folder. I won't think about it again. Oh,
Right.
this looks really important. Okay, I have to actually put this aside and remember to do that.
What form of communication are people most responsible to? Is it the text messaging? Is it the phone calls? Like, what is the most impactful that you're seeing?
Texting by far has the
Yeah.
highest read rates and the
Yeah.
highest response rates, but
Yeah.
different things for different actions. If you need someone to complete a form, especially if it's a long form, you might want to send it over email so they can do it at a computer. If it is, you need to remind them to take their pre-meds, text messages are great. If the clinic is closing, make that phone call, do an automated phone call. It really depends on what the task at hand is. And we have different success rates on the medium you choose to message to get that completed.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that I like text. Like it seems like phone calls are kind of going the way of the dodo these days, right? It's just even for business, it seems to be text message seems to be the go-to for everyone. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so now we've got our 8 to 12 messages gone out. Forms are filled out. What's the next thing? Like patients coming out to the practice. Where's the interaction with software at this point?
So at this point, we're shifting from like patient acquisition into, how do we get this patient to show up prepared? And that's going to really shift the gears to appointment reminders, to appointment confirmations. If they come into the office, if they haven't filled out their forms, having a kiosk, they can fill it out, digitally. Those are all really the important steps along that way. But once they're in the chair, it's really about making sure that experience is as positive as possible. And that's, how do we make sure that the time you're spending is with patients that are in the office, not doing kind of the mundane tasks. So, we try to remove a lot of the rebooking requirements. That would be things like calling people about their recalls or following up on treatment plans. How do we remove that busy work? And how do we put that towards patients in the chair to make sure that experience is great when they first enter? Because
Yeah.
first impressions, they die hard. And we want to make sure it's a positive one that is the lasting memorable experience.
Yeah, like
But then,
how important is that the front end team to be patient facing, right? And
oh,
all this minutia happening in the background. That's that is
there
the future, isn't it?
it really, I mean, the thing I think the spa clinics are getting correct is there needs to be intentionality in your interactions. And the worst things you can do are the things that if you've been going to the dentist for 20 years, we've all seen the I'm on the phone 1 second thing. And you want to remove that experience any way, any means possible. So we're just seeing more and more patients when they're in the office, they want your full attention. They want to be able to ask you questions. They don't want to feel like they're a nuisance to you. So I do believe like that is becoming more and more important. And, you're seeing clinics really take that with the spa mindset where, it's a serene experience. You enter, it's quiet. They quietly bring you to your chair. They give you, nice headphones. They got the scents going. They're really being mindful, but that's not the only way. You can be mindful with your friendliness. You can open the door for your patients as they enter. You can shake their hand, ask them how they're doing. Like there's a lot of things you can do. The biggest thing is you want to look like you're doing it joyfully. Like this is something you want to do. It's not
Yeah.
something your boss is telling you have to do. Because once again, that authenticity, just like
Yeah.
in the reminder messages, is super obvious in person too.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. How's the system addressing no shows?
So the biggest thing that we find is when you follow those rules, when you're giving relevant, timely, and actionable engagements, people respect you back. So we see across all of our customers over 95% show up rates. And, yeah, that's a slightly bit better than what you see on the industry. But the biggest thing that we see is patients who aren't going to show up are actually letting you know in advance. And that's what we're really trying to do is how do we get, if you're not going to show up, how do I get to know that 2 days before rather than the day of? And
Hmm.
that's where Intivio could, really support it. Because if we haven't got that confirmation 48 hours, you can let them know, hey, this is your last chance to cancel your appointment before we have to charge you a reservation fee.
Right.
Will you confirm your appointment? If you do not answer this, we're going to unschedule you. Like there's steps you can take once you have that trust built out. That you just see you're either notified earlier in advance or patients are showing up more accurately. But I think the biggest one, to be super candid, is patients are just showing up fully prepared.
Hmm.
We talk to customers, and if you're not using a digitalized forms, you have like 10% chance of a patient filling it out beforehand. Like if you're just sending a PDF and hoping they print it out or do it on Adobe or whatever, no one's doing that. If
Nobody.
you're
Yeah. No.
using a
Yeah.
digital system, it's about 40% of people are doing it.
Everybody has a printer at home, but it doesn't have any ink left in it, right?
Yeah. And what we found is because of our approach, because we follow those three rules, we have an 80% forms completion rate before they ever walk in the door.
Right.
And
Right.
that's because all of our features are treated like tools. Every single day we notify you. These 5 people who have appointments over the next 3 days still haven't done their forms. Remind them.
Right.
It's proactive about what needs to be done, and it really just helps make sure patients don't fall through the cracks.
Yeah. And one really interesting thing that I have my eyeball on is the quality of the lead, right? The quality of the patient lead from marketing. I find, from different various sources, the likelihood of somebody to show up if they're a actual patient referral versus a we'll say meta advertisement
Yeah.
lead. Is that something that you guys are tracking as well, like conversion on the marketing spend aspect?
100%. That's why we do the non-patient chat, is that we want to see
Yeah.
before they're a patient how they're connecting with you. And then
Hmm.
of those people, what are converting to new patients? And then of those new patients for specialists, what are actually moving forward with their
Yeah.
consultations and going
Yeah.
into their treatment plans?
Yeah.
What we find, and this isn't just dentistry, this is B2B sales right across the board. It's all about speed to lead. You're right. There's always going to
Yeah.
be lead quality by channel that's going to be better or worse.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking for a dentist, I put a comment out to Facebook. I get referred 3 different names because I'm not just going to get one. Look at the referral messages that people ask.
Oh, I
There's
know.
3, 4, 5 different options. I'm going to
Yeah.
message the first one, wait 5 minutes, message the second one, wait 5 minutes, message the
Yeah.
third one, and who calls first wins. And
And you know
so
what?
many
Like
practices,
there's a stat out there. I'm sure you know this as well. Like if there is no connection within that 5 minutes, you're 22x less likely to have that patient come to the practice. Like
like if you
it
do it
really
over
is.
60
Yes.
minutes, it's
Yeah.
like zero. Just don't even
Yeah.
call them.
Don't even bother. Yeah. And like
Yeah.
do you like I don't think that these practices actually understand that. Like there are some good ones out there, but this is real numbers. Like and it's like there's
Someone
receipts.
else's mismanagement is your opportunity. So
Yeah.
I think that's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
But it's 100% true.
Yeah.
It's all about speed to lead,
Yeah.
and that's why we focus on how do we automate as much as possible.
Yeah.
So when the
Yeah.
phone
Yeah.
rings and patient pop pulls up on our system and it tells you it's a non-patient that's calling,
Yeah.
you're already prepared to book them. You're already
Yeah.
prepared to follow the standard operating procedure to bring this patient in and to get that first appointment on the scheduler. So that's
Yeah.
really what we're trying to do. We're trying to
Yeah.
remove the busy work to get them engaged and informed on the really important work. And the other example we see with oral surgeons and other specialists is patients are calling. That's one thing, but if a referring
Referral.
doctor
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
sending me 50 patients a month is calling, I don't want it to ring twice.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I
Right.
pick up the phone. I know who it is. I want to know who the patients who are actively in my pipeline. And
Hmm.
that's why we have things like patient pop, where if someone calls in, it opens on the sidebar, and if we know if they're a non-patient, we know if they're existing patient, if we know if they're a referring patient, and if they're any one of those categories, the relevant information displays, showing you what you need to action on, what's still outstanding. I mean, you would not believe, but when we talk to our customers, 40% of the phone calls coming into specialists are referring doctors wanting an
Yeah.
update.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's their bread and butter right there for sure.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
What do you
ours is all about removing that busy work and putting your staff on the human related important tasks.
which is a great segue to my next question. Like, what things do you folks have in place to ensure the compliance with the tools? Like the tools are fantastic, but I've had experience with some really robust tools that they're not being utilized to their full extent. So what's training look like? What do you what does the support look like? And let's touch on that, because really like the engine of the practice is the front end. Like a good front end, well-oiled machine at the front end will scale a practice. There's no question. It's the business center, the sales center, the marketing center of the practice.
So, you know, all systems kind of have this problem. It's the gap I was mentioning. There's an executional gap
Mm-hmm.
where we know what we need to do, we have the tools to do it, but things are just falling through the cracks because it's such a context switching role that it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to see everything through that needs to be done every day. So we are actually going to be releasing in this year and really within the next few months here, the most requested feature we've had from any of our large institutions. And the reason they're requesting this is because they can see, we have Intibio running at 28 offices. 10 of the offices are the absolute, mold of what we're trying to create. All their metrics are on target. Their production's on target. They couldn't be better. And the bottom 10 offices are 30, 40, 50% of that.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? We have the same tools, the same process, and they boil down to is, well, some office managers, some general managers are actually better at running the clinics. They're better
Yeah.
at managing their staff. They're better at overseeing everything that gets done. And that's kind of a cop-out answer because there's no solution. And what we've worked with these customers, and we're excited to be releasing in this year, is really providing those tracks in our application that every patient has a string on them, and that when you need to action that patient because they're coming in proactively through your phone or through a two-way chat, their actions are brought front and center. Their tasks are brought front and center.
Right.
When they complete things behind the door, maybe they call, they confirm their appointment, tasks are auto being completed, but really giving every single user of our application a overarching view of everything they need to get done in a day as it relates to the patient experience.
Mm-hmm.
So this has definitely been a massive undertaking, something we've worked on for the last 6 months, working with our largest customers, understanding what are the different levers, what are the workflows that Intivio oversees, what are the workflows we don't oversee and we need to integrate into.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we brought in Intivio Voice last year. We got overwhelming responses that we need a source of truth for all of our patient communications. And too many cracks are falling through voicemails and through phone calls that aren't integrated with the texting system or the messaging system, and they want all under one roof. And
Mm-hmm.
we are providing that, as well as management for how each of these workflows are going and what you need to do today to make sure that tomorrow you hit your production targets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There must be, I would imagine, like individual logins for the front end team, and there's opportunities for coaching, like call rail, listening to calls. Is that something that you
All of that
encourage?
is open through Intivio Voice
Yeah.
primarily,
Right.
because
Right.
now you have digitalized VoIP. One of the things that we created was like, we don't want this just to be the phone line on a
Mm-hmm.
computer.
Right.
We want to give that augmented reality experience. That's why we have the provider pop, the referral pop, the non-patient, where everything's contextual to the person calling in or the person you're having a two-way chat with.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one part of it that's really important. But the other one is really just understanding what are the activities I'm doing every day and how do those contribute to the overall production targets that we're trying to accomplish. And they are aligned to it, but helping display that to your office manager, it's like, hey, you're doing really good in your rebooking rates. You're crushing it there. Don't call your recall list tomorrow. You need to generate more new patients, or you need to talk to your patients who already have appointments booked but aren't following their fasting instructions, or they're not filling out their forms beforehand. So every day, 3 patients are coming in and delaying the schedule by 10 minutes each because they're filling it out in the office chair. Like, what are the things that are inhibiting your ability to hit your goals? And then what are the activities that support those, those outcomes? And what we're seeing is often people focus in on what they're really good at,
Yeah.
and kind of ignore the things they're not so good at. And this task system tries to bring front and center everything that needs to be done.
Right. Any design on bringing in, and you're seeing this pop up all over the place, some sort of AI voice component, calling, etc. Is that something that's being looked at or implemented in any, even on a text basis, chatbot? Is that happening?
So I have a really strong conviction around what AI is and isn't at Intivio.
Yeah.
I think it's like the internet. It's going to be a revolutionary tool, but like the internet, not what we thought it was going to be in 1999. 1999, we thought this was the everything was never going to be the same, and they were true, but they were wrong by about 20 years. I think AI is the same. We're just in that kind of 1999 of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how we view it and how I really am, driving the direction of our product is around how do we use AI to drive more accessibility. So today, when the office isn't opened, you have two options. You're going to send them to an overseas call center, and they're going to take really crappy messages and kind of deflate your brand, and hopefully send that message back to you when you open, or you're going to leave a voicemail. Both of those aren't really great. You know what's way better than that? An AI chatbot that can answer basic questions for you, like what's
Yeah.
outstanding for my appointment tomorrow?
Yeah.
Do I have to show up prepared? When's my next appointment? Does my family have any recalls? And getting some of those answers through AI actually drives more accessibility for your patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a really great way to do it.
Yeah.
But we also have a counter rule, is if the status quo, the current way that you solve this problem is through human interaction, we're not going to do AI with it. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a cost-cutting measure. I don't think, and I know other people in our space, they're like, we're replacing the front desk with AI. In fact, we've named her Sarah already.
Yep.
And as soon as you turn her on, Susan, goodbye. Sarah, hello. And she's going to be just, it's like normal people, the average patient is not enthused with AI, especially AI in lieu of a human.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially this is a medical profession, right? There
Yeah.
needs to be that, always needs to be that face to face human side of things. Like even in that 8 to 12 touch points before the patient shows up to the practice, there should be an actual, even if it's the front ends leaving a voicemails, they making the connection. It's all about the how they feel about getting to the practice. The feeling starts essentially when they see the advertisement and they just are
Yeah.
aware of the business or service. That's when it starts.
We're much less VR headsets, AI view, to augmented glasses.
Yeah, right.
We want to allow your staff to be more efficient. We want to use AI to
Yeah,
know which patient's calling, what should I talk about with that patient while I have them on the phone,
yeah,
and bring that front and center for you to see. But
yeah.
fundamentally, we want your staff to be engaged with their patients. We think
I
people
like
want
that
that. We think
that Iron Man heads up display. All right, like that's
exactly.
how I'm feeling. That'd be awesome, by the way. Okay, so we've got the patients come in, they've had a great experience, the communication was awesome. What happens, end of appointment? Where does the system play at that point?
So once again, it's really based on the context of what type of procedure is. So all of our communications can be relevant. So if it's a new patient exam, usually what I would say is, "Hi, really loved that you came here. Do you mind if we send a survey to follow up with you and see how your first appointment was?" And our system can automatically send them that survey. It's tailored to a new patient exam, so it's not the same one you'd get for a hygiene or a surgery. But really, it asks the important questions: Were you greeted on time? Were your previous health concerns addressed? Most importantly, do you intend to continue your treatment with us? And really getting some of that feedback. I wouldn't recommend doing things, although you can send like a social review and ask them to fill out something online. But I think that's tacky on the first visit. That's something you want to do after a hygiene appointment.
Mm,
So it's really dependent on the type of appointment. But what I recommend for new patients is, how do we get that feedback? How do we let them know we care? And then how do we get that commitment for them to book that next hygiene appointment, that next recall, or the filling that maybe you found out about? That's really my focus on new patient exams and conversions, because a lot of new patients do that first appointment, but don't ever come in for their cleanings, don't ever come in beyond that. And
yep,
that's not really a new patient. That's just a vanity metric then.
100%. Yeah. And then how many touch points does that require in between, like with that next step? Is it not 8 to 12? Is it the same? Um, you
So
know,
at that point, once you've completed your appointment, you really have only one track left, and that is the engagement tracks. How do I get you to commit to your next
mhm,
appointment?
mhm.
Often I tell people, you want to do that while they're standing in front of you.
That was my next
And
point.
if
Yeah. Like
that's
what's in
happening
place
less,
there? Like, are they booking chairside? Like, can they bring up the
right?
system in the
And
operatory?
offices are saying more and more patients are pushing back upon that. They're saying they need to talk to a spouse
Really?
or whatever. But if that's not happening 60 to 70% of the time, you're creating so much more work for you on
Yeah.
the back end.
Yeah.
But on the back end, we also have a system, and the way ours works is a little bit different than a lot of systems. We actually don't track when are you overdue. What we
Okay.
do, but that's not the impetus of when we engage with you. The
Got it.
primary engagement is right when you complete your appointment. We send you a message. Do you want to schedule your next one? Click here, and they can start requesting that next appointment right when they leave. Then we start engaging with them as like, when's your due date? And then how far out are you booking from that due date? So many of our customers, it's 6 to 8 weeks if you call and you want a time. Well, when we start, we're not going to remind you on your due date. We're going to remind you 6 to 8 weeks before your due date, so that when you call them, you actually get an appointment around your due date. So it really depends on the patient, what the recall cycle is, the practice, but it's much more involved around when do we think we need to contact them? Like, when is the timing, the relevant, and the action all aligned to get the outcome the office cares about? And those things are aligned before the due date, not on the due date. Because if you do it on the due date, now you push that recall back 8 weeks. And every 2 to 3 years, you lose out on revenue from an appointment insurance would have paid for.
Yeah. What are you guys seeing churn wise? How many patients are evaporating off the back end? Like I've heard anywhere from 10 to 17%. Does that echo in what you guys are saying?
I think 10% is almost unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
They say 5 to 7% move away or die
Mm-hmm.
every year. So, I think that weighs in. I think Canada is a little bit less so than the US. I think we don't move around as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think if you are seeing higher than 15% conversion, of new patients coming into your practice, you're going to have a shrinking practice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm seeing as well. And loyalty too. Like that's an interesting one too. I think like emphasis on that experience, right? You
Well,
got to
that's why the
really,
focus is about
yeah,
getting the next appointment booked. Because you know what? The reality is, like, truth of the matter, the patient who leaves their current provider to go to you for their first appointment is also likely to leave you for the next shiny object,
yeah, fair enough.
right? Like
Yeah.
you're fishing in that pool.
Yeah.
The patient who stays with you for 30 years isn't doing that. So
Right.
it's kind of one of those things that you need to be painfully aware of, like, where am I getting these patients from? What type of
Yeah.
patient are they? And then how do I actually convert them to become loyal patients? Because
Yeah.
honestly, even if you're replacing your patients every 5 years, that's too much. You need to have patients who then have kids, who then hopefully have grandkids, and all of them go to you. That's
Yeah.
how you build these really successful practices where, you're only accepting 100, 150 new patients a year.
Yeah. And like emphasis on really dialing down on the treatment and the care, the options that you're providing, and making it a real transparent and anxious free, anxiety free experience and frictionless. um, zooming out, what tools, what metrics, what dashboards are in place to really like have a kind of a breadth and analysis on treatment mix, everything that's going on under the hood in the actual practice? Is that also
Yeah.
baked into
Let's
the
start it.
offering? Yeah.
We'll work on like kind of like those three pillars I was talking about. So for patient
Yeah.
acquisition, it's what percentage of your active patient base is leaving your practice every year. You need to know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Is it 3%? Is it 5? Is it 12? Is it 20? You need to know that, and then you need to know what do I need to bring in for new patients to meet the goals available to me. So if you're a brand new practice, I always think if you're a de novo, your first goal you should focus in on, 100 new active patients, then 1,000. Once you build to 1,000, things get easier. You have more of a brand, you get a referral base that can refer to others, but you need to be laser focused on getting that 1,000 active patients. So new active patients by week or by month is a big one. Active new patients who book their hygiene appointments, their next patient is a big one. But also it's new patients from what channel? Are you getting patients from referrals, like patient referrals? What are you doing to support that workflow? Are you getting patients through marketing? And what are you doing to support your website and your socials? Are you getting new patients through community events or TV ads? What are you doing to promote those? But just being really aware of like where are you getting your new patients from, and then to your point, what's the quality of new patient coming from that channel?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of things we talk about on new patient base, and that's probably the pillar that's the most different based off what stage of organization you are. If you're a mature clinic, you're going to do very little there because you just don't have the time to get more new patients.
Yeah.
If you're a brand new practice, you're going to spend 80% of your focus on that. But for patient engagement, we really focus on active patient rebooking rates. Sometimes we have to look on like what is a new patient, like what is an active patient. In my opinion, it's someone who's seen you within the past year. If it's been
Mm-hmm.
over a year, I don't think they're an active patient anymore. Maybe they're like a pending patient and you can reactivate them, but surely after 2 years, they're no longer active at all. So
Yeah.
I think you really need
Arguably,
to
after
define.
if they're not in on that 6 month standard of care hygiene appointment, that's they've hit that 7 month point. They
You
become
got to be on,
question.
and you got to be on it before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
8 weeks before that. So
Yeah.
that's another metric we obsess about. But then once again, it's the third one is really around the appointment completion rate, and that's the biggest leader to a confirmation is someone telling you 24 hours beforehand they're going to be there. So how
Mm-hmm.
do we work on confirmation rates? How do we work on patient preparedness, making sure everything's completed? So form completion rate becomes a big one. Confirmation rate is a big one. Obviously, late cancellations another big one. No shows another big one. In-chair rebooking rates. So there's a bunch of metrics that our system really helps focus in on support to drive a more successful practice. But those are kind of the big ones.
Huge. Yeah. Josh, like I love your energy, man. Like I can just you're oozing your passion. It's I love it. It's great. I know that that's such an important piece to driving a business forward. Is really, I can tell your heart's on your sleeve with
You
everything.
work that much harder on doing it. I think,
Yeah.
I've been really blessed to have a great team that I really love working side by side with, but to
Mm-hmm.
be in an industry that I think is just so much potential and
Oh
opportunity
yes, for sure.
to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
change completely the way that I was brought up in
Yeah.
dentistry
Yeah.
to, hopefully the way I can raise my kids in dentistry.
Yeah.
Technology is finally being embraced. It's being leveraged almost too much. And I love it when you go into those times where there's a balance. It's like if we go to
Yeah.
bleeding edge, people don't like it, like AI receptionists. But
Yeah.
if we're not cutting edge, we're boring and we're commoditized. What's the Goldilocks zone on
Sure.
how we take technology not necessarily to where it could go, but where it should go. And that's my passion. I love seeing technology. I love evaluating it, but fundamentally, I love people. And I think at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, our tool is about enhancing relationships
Right.
and building a better experience for patients. Because if we don't build this tool, it's not the dental offices that suffer. Dental offices have been successful for the last 100, 200 years. It's the patients. Their experience is the one that
Yeah.
suffers. We
That's
have
right.
to go
Yeah.
there. We're going to go whether it's good, bad, or anywhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
But we have the opportunity in Tivio to make sure that everywhere you go, the experience is exceptional. And
I
that's
love it.
really honestly why I love doing what I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How would folks get a hold of you? I have the website open up, so you can talk in the background of this.
We have intivio.com is our main website. We're on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, I think even, the Google.
The Google.
But also you can send me an email. I'm always happy to chat with people. I really love hearing from our customers and people that don't use us as well. What is it that you see in patient engagement? Where are the opportunities? What are some of your frustrations? And my email is Josh, Josh, @intivio.com.
I
So
I'll have it down in the show notes when this comes out. So just yeah. What else are we missing, Josh? I know, like I feel like we need to go out for a pint and get a lunch at some point to dive deeper here.
yeah,
Is there anything else that you can? That's I'm sure there'll be something on your drive home. But is there anything you want to just kind of leave the listeners just heads up in 2026 to look out for these things? What's top of mind kind of
I
stuff?
think for me, and just to kind of put the proof in the pudding of my mission of I want to make experiences better for all patients, whether you're using Tivio or you're perfectly happy with what you have, I really want every single listener to think about what am I doing in my practice that makes me special? What am I doing in my practice that makes me different from the guy down the road or the gal down the road? And what am I doing that makes me better? And if every single practitioner really embraces that mindset, we are going to have such a diverse group of offerings that are going to find patients that are fanatical fans over your service, your clinic, your offerings. That's what I want to see. I want to see the most like strange oddball clinics that if you're a hipster or a punk rocker or a businessman or a spa enthusiast, you can find a practice that's going to meet with you on your level and serve your needs accordingly.
I like
That's
that.
really what I want you to focus in on. I want our listeners to focus in on that as well.
Yeah, and goodness, like I every market is underserved. Like there's plenty. I like that, making that connection, right? Then and
There's a
that.
place called House of Teeth in
Yes, I know.
Vancouver here.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly what I was thinking. Like, yeah, I know
90% of people would walk in and walk out of that. I
Yeah,
walk in and I'm like, I feel comfortable.
yeah,
The guy's
yeah,
got tattoos. They're listening to, rock music, and
yeah,
he sells bourbon toothpaste. Like, but that's
yeah,
not for everyone. And that's
yeah.
really, I believe in whether he did so intentionally or not. He thought about those three things and he
Mhm.
built a company that's authentic to himself.
Yeah, that's great. And like I know, and that's a beautiful example. It just that's what popped into my head when you talked about that. So, Josh, this has been awesome. again, let's go grab a pint. I'd love to dive deeper into how we can work closer together. And thank you, sir, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure, and talk to you soon.
You bet.
Take care.